Oh, shoot. I lost her. Hey, Emmanuel, good morning. Welcome back.
It was good, man.
It's good to see you, my friend. How was your break?
Good. Yo, when is the grades going?
The last day for the term is the 22nd, I believe.
22nd.
Yeah, 22nd.
No, I'm talking about for the progress reports. That's what I meant to say. And who do I talk about the credits, dog? Cause I really gotta need to know who I need to talk to about these credits, bro. See how many I got and see how many I need. You know what I mean? See how long I'm gonna be here, like an estimated time.
Credits would be a Miss Claudio question, right? So I would email her the date for
The
the
Spanish teacher.
yes,
Uh,
the date for the next progress report. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I will know after we have a meeting tomorrow. The teachers have a meeting tomorrow, so
and we still doing summer cycle this year, right?
I would imagine so. Yeah, yeah. So if you still need to make up some credits in the summer, I would imagine you'll still have the opportunity to do that. I don't know whether it'll be in person or virtual, but I think we'll have one either way.
All right.
All right. Hey, Keon. Good morning to you. Welcome. I hope you had a good break. I hope you are relaxed and refreshed. Let me see. Where's my English? I sent it to the wrong one. Shoot. All right, let me send a few reminders out here. Try and get some more people logged on. Make sure my attendance is good. Emmanuel, Kian. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot. You did tell me you broke your hand yesterday, Keon. So are you in? Do you have it in a cast or something, or is it just like kind of bruised up? Good morning, Kira.
Hi.
Welcome back. Hope you had a good break. Just wrapped it in ice. Gotcha. Well, I wish you a speedy recovery with that, Keon. So does this mean you're typing just with one hand? Or are you still able to use both? Phone in the right hand. Gotcha. Yeah, that stinks. I'm sorry that happened. I hope you recover quickly. All right. It's good to see you all again, my friends. Welcome back. I hope you had a safe and relaxing break. I'm glad to see you all back here again today. We'll give it about maybe 5 more minutes and see if we get anyone else logged on. I'm going to send out one more reminder blast here real quick. And then I'll throw up our agenda for today. I hope everyone had a good holiday. Happy New Year to all of you. Congratulations on making it through the dumpster fire that was 2020. We are all here on the other side of it now, thankfully. So hopefully we can see some brighter days ahead into 2021. Right? I just send one more email out. I'm going to toss up our agenda while we wait for a few more people to join us, so you guys can see what we're doing today. Then we'll jump into it. All right. Thank you all again for logging on. Good to see you all today. So we'll give it about 2, 3 more minutes here, and then we'll jump into it. Okay. Good morning, Amir. Welcome, my friend. Good to see you. Welcome back. Hope you had a good break. Glad to have you with us today. We are just giving it about 2 more minutes to see who else we get logged on. All right. As you can see, today we are talking about some narrative stuff, trying to understand, define vignettes, and hopefully, if we get to it, start to brainstorm our own narrative ideas. Hi, welcome, Jai Marie. Good morning to you as well. All right. Glad you guys can all be here today. Let's give it about 1 more minute and then we will jump into it with our do now. Again, I hope everybody is refreshed and ready to dive into it after our break. So, thank you again for being here today. Who do we got? Looks like we lost somebody. Maybe not. I'm not sure. Right. But y'all are here nonetheless. So let me just get my attendance up to date here for today. Jerry and Amir. And Kira. All right. Now we should be good. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So for today, I have a do now question that I'm going to throw up right now. All right. What I'd like you to think about and then respond to in the chat, as it says here, is this question, which is, can you think of a story or a movie that was told through flashbacks or smaller, shorter stories that made up one big narrative? If so, did you like it? Why or why not? Right. So can you think of a movie that you saw or a story that you read that had some parts in it where there was maybe a flashback moment or like a memory or a smaller, shorter story that, when put together with some other ones, made up one, bigger narrative arc, right? Can you think of anything like that? And if so, did you like it? Did you not like it? Tell me why. All right, let's think about this and respond in the chat, please. Let's take the next maybe 2, 3 minutes to see if we can get some in there for this. All right, thank you. Good morning to whoever just joined us. Samaj, good morning, my friend. All right, you are catching us just in time. We have started with our do now. It is up here on the screen. Please feel free to respond in the chat. Again, can you think of a story or a movie that was told through flashbacks or smaller, shorter stories that made up one big narrative? If so, did you like it? Why or why not? Excuse me. Again, think about that and take about another minute or so to come up with a thought that you can share in the chat. I'm going to check the chat right now. All right. And it remains devoid of answers for this question. So let's take maybe another 2 minutes if we still need some time to come up with something. But I should start to see some responses come in here. All right. I know I should be able to get at least one or two because I know I got a lot of insightful thinkers in here today and a few movie buffs as well. So, what can we think of? Does anything come to mind for this question? Throw it up in the chat if it does. All right. All right. Give it maybe another minute. Let's see if we can come up with anything. All right, still nothing in the chat, so I'd like to see at least one or two responses roll in here for this again. Any thoughts on this? Could be a book you read, could be a movie that you saw. Right. Even if there is a video game you've played where the story mode had some flashbacks and stuff in. Can you think of anything that goes along with this description up here? All right, what do we think? Any thoughts on this? I'm going to put it in the chat as well, in case that might be easier for some of you to respond to. All right. So it's up in the chat now, but when I think of this question, um, a few movies come to mind. There is a movie called Catch Me If You Can with Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Hanks, where the movie starts kind of almost toward the end of the story, and then it flashes back to the beginning of this man's life, and shows you how he um, got to the point where he is when the movie starts, and it's kind of going back and forth um, between those two things. All right. So that would be one example of what we're talking about with this Another one that somebody mentioned in the last class was the movie Big Fish. If any of you have ever seen that, where it's a movie about the man whose father is dying, and his dad always used to tell him these kind of like far-fetched, like outlandish tall tales and stories. And so he is trying to, reconnect with his father before he dies, and he's remembering all the stories that his dad told, and then they're kind of acted out. You see them acted out, and it kind of again flips back and forth between those two. So those would be two that I had come up with. I'll put those in the chat. That'd be Catch Me If You Can. Big Fish, right? Any of you, ladies and gentlemen, anything that comes to mind for this question? All right. Or have we all fallen asleep or stepped away? Or The Godfather would be one. Yes. Number one or number two? Kira, are you talking about? Yeah, number two, definitely. Really good example. I can't believe I didn't think of that. Being a very big Godfather fan. Yeah, that's definitely one. That uses flashbacks and goes to when, Vito Corleone was a young boy in Sicily, and then to the present day with Michael and in Cuba and all that stuff. So that's a really good one. Any other examples that you guys can think of? Up is another really good one, Kira, and actually one that we are going to use as an example today. So you are already, one step ahead of the game. So thank you. Anybody else besides Kira who can think of maybe one more movie or story that uses flashbacks or other smaller stories to kind of tell the bigger picture? Can we come up with one more? What do we think? Yes, no? Or are we still Juice? I haven't seen that whole movie, and I haven't seen any part of it in a while, Keon. But you are probably. I think you're right. Yeah. Juice or um, Love and Basketball would be another one too. I thought of that one because Omar Epps is in both of those movies. But yeah, that could definitely be one. All right, I'll have to double check on that, but I think you're right. Right. So the reason we are good job, by the way, thank you guys for sharing. The reason we are talking about these examples is because all of those flashbacks or shorter stories or stuff like that, those are what's called vignettes. All right, I'll put that in the chat since it's both weird sounding and weird spelling. Right, and a vignette is kind of like a short little moment, whether it is a flashback, a memory, a shorter kind of story description that when taken by itself doesn't really work as a story. There's no kind of arc, there's no beginning, middle, and end. But when you put it together with other little ones, it helps tell a bigger picture and create a bigger narrative arc. So just like those flashbacks in The Godfather 2, like Kira was talking about, if we just had those by himself, and it's like, okay, here's Vito in Sicily, and then that's it, we don't really know, what that means, what's supposed to happen next. But when you put that together with the rest of the story, like Michael, in the present day, and then Vito when he's older and starting the family and things like that, now it all makes sense, right? Same thing with Up, okay, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Use that as an example. But vignettes are cool because they're a way to tell a story in a non-linear fashion, which means linear, like a straight line, like rather than going from here's the beginning to here's the end and here's everything in between. We can kind of flip back and forth. We can say here's where the story ends up, but now let's flash back to the beginning to paint a bigger picture. Or it helps you give background on certain characters. Like here is excuse me, here is this superhero that's fighting crime, but here's what happened to him before to turn him into a superhero, and why it's so important. Excuse me. Right. And also, if you picked up on it, the story that we have been working with, Homegoing, is told through vignettes. We're going to read some more parts of it, hopefully at the end of this week, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But we can always pull, that's the whole point of, okay, how do we pull from our past to tell a story about ourselves? Well, one way is to do it through like flashbacks and things like that. And that's what we're going to hope to do on our own narratives that we are going to create for the final product for this class. So for today, we want to look at Higman Relisha. Welcome. So, Relisha, I know you're just joining us. So today we are talking about vignettes and narrative examples. We just kind of discussed for our do now some movies that we know that use flashbacks or little shorter stories to tell a bigger one. And now we're going to look at some examples of those. All right. I have two for you. One is a movie called Proud Mary with Taraji P. Henson. So you'll see how the vignettes and the flashbacks kind of tell a bigger story of what she's trying to do. And then the other one is actually Up, like Kira mentioned in the Do Now question. So we'll see how that one works as well. So as you watch both of these, pay attention to how the shorter moments, flashbacks, memories, whatever they are, pay attention to how, when all put together, they tell a bigger story of what's actually going on. And think about how, if we just had them by themselves, would they work the same way as they do when they're all put together in the bigger context? Okay. So that's what we should be thinking about as we watch these. Let me share my screen and then we can get going here. All right. Here is the first one.
Mary, when you first meet her, is a contract killer for hire. She was homeless as a child. The streets and the gangs raised her. When she meets Danny, where am I? Just say, she sees her life all over again. And she wants out for the sake of saving herself and this boy. I'm leaving out of here and I'm taking the kid. So if you want to stop me, you're going to have to kill me.
Newsflash, Mary. You ain't the mothering type.
Now he just being rude. You do all that for me, huh? I told you I wasn't gonna let anybody touch you, and I meant it. Newsflash, I am the mothering type.
All right, so there's one example. So hopefully you can see how those little shorter clips of Mary being a contract killer and the memories of her, growing up on the streets, they paint the bigger picture of the reason behind why she now wants to protect this young boy. All right, here is our second example. Again, like Kira already used in our earlier discussion. So this is the beginning of the movie Up from Pixar. If any of you have seen it before, you already probably know what's going to happen here. But again, keep in mind, how all these little memories or moments work together to tell a bigger story, and think about, would it work the same if they were just taken by themselves, as kind of standalones. All right. So now let's check this one out here. because I just heard somebody else join in. So, hey, Tahira, good morning. Um, I'll start this one over since it's only at the beginning. So, we're talking about these things called vignettes this morning, and we are looking at examples of movies that utilize them in the forms of flashbacks or other kind of shorter stories. So, we're doing that with the beginning of the movie Up right now, and then talk about kind of why and what these are with one more video today. So just to catch you up since you're just joining us. All right, so let's try it one more time. Here we go. Right. So not to be a downer, because I know that is super sad at the end, but that is another good example of using vignettes, right? So
Huh?
here is the question for us to think about after watching both of those. Okay, specifically the up example, and I'll put this question in the chat as well. Um, but would uh, would that uh, would up have had the same effect if all of those little moments were just taken by themselves and not all put together, right? That's what I want us to think about real quick. All right, what do we think? Would it have had the same effect? Would we have felt the same way if it was just here's Carl and Allie getting married and then it's done, and then here's Carl and Allie at the zoo and then it's done, versus having them all put together back to back to back, leading up to where we see Carl at the when the beginning of the story starts, being old and in the house by himself. What do you think? It have worked the same way, or would it have been a little different? Anybody who can share in the chat, or you can come off mute if that works better too. But what do you think? I know, Kira, you already mentioned up in our discussion before. So what do you think? Does that beginning part have the same kind of effect if all those little moments are just taken by themselves and not put together? What do you think? And if you're stumped on the question or what I'm kind of getting at here, remember, that's okay, because the point of a vignette is to tell a larger story by utilizing kind of smaller moments. And that's exactly what Up does at the beginning there. All right. It tells us, it gives us the background of the bigger arc of the story, being that, okay, Carl is this grumpy old man who lives in his house by himself, and he's going to meet this Boy Scout, right? But if we didn't have that beginning part, we wouldn't know, why he's so grumpy. All right. And if we only had the beginning part, we wouldn't get what the purpose of it is. Like, okay, yeah, this is this great couple who's super close, and then sadly she dies. But now what happens next? So they both kind of have to work together to tell the bigger story, right? And Kira says yes, that. Uh, so Kira, you're saying yes. You think the effect would have been the same, even if they're just taking each one by themselves? Is that what you mean? While you're thinking about that, you can respond in the chat when you do. But while you're thinking about that, I have one more thing for us to watch today that is kind of like a little crash course um, on vignettes, which gives us a little bit more definition, a little bit more background, and a couple more examples, and then lastly some kind of tips and tricks on how to use them effectively in our own writing, which is eventually what we're going to do. Okay. So I know if not everybody's at their computer today, that's okay. If you can still see my screen share and you want to take a couple screen grabs or whatever. Oh, excuse me, whatever works best. Feel free. Right. I'm going to put 2 questions in the chat. All right. And this is what I'd like us to be thinking about as we watch this last 10-minute or so video here. And then these are the answers I'd like to see from you before you all leave today to get full participation for class today. The first one is, what is a vignette? So you're just giving me the definition. Okay. And the next one is how or why do we use vignettes in narrative writing? Okay. So those 2 questions that I just put in the chat, that's what you should be thinking about as we watch the video and what I'm going to want from you before we leave today. Okay. So keep that stuff in mind as we watch. I'm going to share my screen one more time here, and we'll let her kind of take it away.
Hello there. If you're watching this video, then most probably you are asked to write the vignette. And the first time you heard the word, you were like, huh? What is that? Don't worry, you are definitely not alone in this endeavor. So let me help you understand what vignette is and how to start making one. Let's begin with the definition. What do we mean by vignette? In literature, a vignette is a short scene that captures a single moment or a defining detail about a character, idea, or other element of the story. Vignettes are mostly descriptive. In fact, they often include little or no plot detail. They are not standalone literary works, nor are they complete plots or narratives. Instead, vignettes are small parts of a larger work and can only exist as pieces of a whole story. Notably, vignette means little vine and is named after the decorative vine leaves that adorned 19th century books. Like the vines that adorn the books, a vignette in literature adorns the story by enhancing a part of it. So how long is a vignette? According to MasterClass, vignettes are short scenes within a larger story, so they are usually far fewer than 1,000 words long. Is a vignette a short story? The answer is no. A short story is literary work composed on average 1,000 to 10,000 words. A short story has a full narrative structure with a beginning, middle, and end. A vignette does not follow a narrative with a beginning, middle, and end. It is not a story in itself. It is more of a description or an observation. It is like looking through a magnifying glass for a moment. A short story features a viewpoint character who goes through some sort of conflict. Is a vignette a flash fiction then? A flash fiction is a very short literary work that is usually less than 1,000 words. So basically, it has the same length with vignette. But the flash fiction follows a story arc with a beginning, middle, and end. So a flash fiction is just like a short story. It has a narrative. Okay? It usually starts the story in the middle of the conflict or action. Flash fiction is also referred to as postcard fiction or microfiction. So what really is a vignette? A vignette is composed of short scenes within a larger story that are usually under 1,000 words. It is used to add depth and understanding to something in a story. It is designed to give a more visual context to a character, place, or event. That is why its language should be descriptive and detailed about whatever it is focusing on, whether it is a person, place, thing, or idea.
All right, so you can notice there again that the key is with a vignette, it's not, a full story. It's not a full narrative. There's not a beginning, middle, and end. It's a short scene that helps describe a larger narrative, just like those little flashbacks at the beginning of Up help describe the larger narrative of a Carl and the Boy Scout and the dog, kind of going on that adventure, and like what's Carl's whole motivation, in the first place. So it's kind of like a descriptive tool that helps sets up the rest of what's going on. Okay.
Time doesn't pass in a vignette. It describes a moment in time. It can be a very useful device for providing insight about a person in the story. For example, a vignette can express a character's memory about something or a flashback to a moment or time in his life, which in turn helps to shed light on his overall life. It can also describe the character physically or emotionally to help develop the reader's idea of his personality and behavior. The same details can be expressed about a story setting to help readers feel more familiar with the character's surroundings. So basically, a vignette can be used to describe anything at any time, so long as it is relevant to an overall story. For example, a vignette about the flavor of a secret vanilla frosting recipe would be a great piece of a story about a baker. But on its own, it would be irrelevant because we wouldn't know that it was a secret. A vignette should be descriptive, whether it is about a setting, a character, or another aspect of a story. Let's take a look at this example. Read it with me, please. The room was warm and stuffy, but in a comforting way. It had a heavy but pleasing odor of musty books and old upholstery, with an overall air of ash and cedar from the fire that was always burning low the stone hearth, crackling and spitting quietly. There was a patchwork blanket resting over the side of the sunken but cozy couch, a square scattered by the love and wear of time. A wooden clock ticked reliably on the wall. So this vignette uses descriptive words to paint a literary picture of a single room. On its own and out of context, this passage does not serve much of a purpose. It leaves questions like, where is the room? Who is seeing the room? Why are they there? Whose home is it? So these questions about the larger story aren't answered with the description. This vignette's purpose is to add further insight about the room and to help the audience understand the setting. It doesn't tell a complete story on its own, but rather it provides depth to the setting of some whole story. Vignettes are important because of their descriptive nature. They can illuminate significant information, create depth of a character, or provide insight about past events or circumstances.
So again, using vignettes as kind of descriptors, like she's saying, illuminate significant information, create depth of a character. That would be the up example. Like, because of those little flashbacks at the beginning, it adds more depth to the character of Carl. Now we know a little bit more about him, his background, and why he's this, grumpy old man. If we didn't have that stuff and we just started with him in the house alone as a grumpy old man, the whole time we'd be wondering, why is this guy like this? Why is this guy this way? If we use those little vignettes like that, those little moments in time that help, work together to create a bigger picture, we kind of get a better idea. Excuse me.
This helps create a more complete picture of the greater story. All stories rely on vignettes to provide detail. Without them, stories would be little more than plot outlines. Now let's take a look at examples of vignette in literature. Vignettes can appear in different ways. They can be a few sentences in a novel or an important scene in a movie. But most importantly, they must be descriptive. So here are some examples of vignettes in a short story and a novel. Our first example is a vignette coming from A Well-Lighted Cafe by Ernest Hemingway. Much of the 20th century author Ernest Hemingway's fame and renown can be attributed to his descriptive brilliance. He was a master of creating portraits of both setting and character, as he did in his short story A Well-Lighted Cafe. Let's read the example. It was very late and everyone had left the cafe except an old man who sat in the shadow the leaves of the tree made against the electric light. In the daytime, the street was dusty, but at night, the dew settled the dust and the old man liked to sit late because he was deaf, and now at night it was quiet and he felt the difference. The two waiters inside the cafe knew that the old man was a little drunk, and while he was a good client, they knew that if he became too drunk, he would leave without paying, so they kept watching him. So reading this opening passage creates a clear image and atmosphere in the reader's mind. We can imagine or envision The shadow of the leaves in the light, we can feel the silence of the night, and we can imagine the intoxicated but quiet man sitting alone at the cafe. Hemingway doesn't introduce the dialogue, which makes up the majority of the story, until he has employed a vignette that develops the atmosphere and feelings that he needs for the story's success. Now let's take a look at the second example. Sandra Cisneros' novel, The House on Mango Street, is a series of vignettes that together create a portrait of life at the house on the Mango Street, which is the protagonist's childhood home in a low-income Latino neighborhood in Chicago. In the story, there's a girl named Esperanza, and she's the one who's narrating the story. And each vignette in the book captures moments, memories, and observations of her everyday life on Mango Street. Let's read an example. The house on Mango Street is ours, and we don't have to pay rent to anybody or share the yard with the people downstairs. But be careful not to make too much noise, and there isn't a landlord banging on the ceiling with a broom. But even so, it's not the house we brought again. So this selection is a vignette about Esperanza's perception of the house on the Mango Street. Prior to this passage, Esperanza has explained that they broke the house. It is a rental. The passage provides insight to Esperanza's thoughts about the house, which are important for the entire story. The reader knows that although the house is their own, it's not the family's first choice. Esperanza is grateful but disappointed at heart. So this vignette exists as a piece of insight for the development of the overall image of life on Mango Street, but it is not a full story itself. This time, let's take a look at examples of vignette in pop culture. So here are some examples of vignettes showing defining moments of characters in TV and film. The Netflix drama and comedy series Orange is the New Black uses many vignettes for characterization of the female prisoners. The vignettes are most notably in the form of flashbacks and capture relative or defining moments in the prisoners' lives and situations that led to their imprisonment. In the show, there is a character, an inmate named Jane, who is also known as Crazy Eyes because of her erratic behavior and her wide, intense eyes. Her flashback is a sleepover party that provides deeper insight about Jose's character. Importantly, it shows that she has always been eccentric, unstable, and as a result has always been an outcast that people struggle to connect with. So this remains true in prison as exemplified by her empathic. The closing scene of the classic film Planet of the Apes is an excellent example of a vignette, particularly one that provides insight about the setting. Here, the protagonist George discovers that the planet he has been on is actually Earth in the future, but it has been completely destroyed. Before this moment, it wasn't clear when or where George is in space and time, respectively. However, this vignette provides the audience and George with information that changes the whole perspective of the plot. On its own, this scene is irrelevant. However, it is a very relevant part of a much larger story. So how do we write a vignette? Writing a vignette is an opportunity to connect with readers. It is a passageway into the story through a visual representation. Let's take a look at some of the tips that we could use in writing a sequel vignette. First, don't conform. You're not bound to traditional plot structure within a vignette. There is no beginning, middle, and sequence you need to follow. All you need to do is to focus on feeling and imagery instead of plot. Number two, use visual language. I'm sure you've heard this before, but I do have to repeat this. Show, don't tell. Use descriptive language and include a lot of details to paint a vivid picture in readers' minds of what is happening. Number three, zoom in for a microscopic view. A vignette is like a camera lens. Zoom in for a close-up look at the details of the moment and describe what the character sees. You have to be very specific. Number four, appeal to the senses. Connect your reader to their senses. Use words that show what a character is feeling, seeing, and hearing. And last, go big then edit. While you want the vignette to be concise, start by writing everything down that you imagine this scene to be. Then go back and shape the imagery, trimming any irrelevant bits. Before we end this video, let me leave you with a quotation coming from Stephen King. Whether it's a vignette of a single page or an epic trilogy like The Lord of the Rings, the work is always accomplished one word at a time. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope I was able to help you out with vignette.
Okay, so hopefully a little bit more info on vignettes. All right. So, ladies and gents, we got about 3 minutes left. There are 2 questions in the chat. All right. That I would like you to try and respond to before you go. Um, you should have all the info you need to do so based on everything we talked about this morning. Okay. What is a vignette? So give me a definition. Think about what she just talked about in that video describing them. And then the second question is how or why do we use vignettes in narrative writing? Okay. What is their purpose? So think about those 2 questions, and I would like to see a response from everybody before we go. Now, I know we only have a few minutes left, so if you want to send it to me in an email or a Google Hangouts message later, that's fine too. If you can put it in the chat now before you go, that also works. Okay. But let's take a few minutes here and try and get some of those answers into me before you go. All right. All right. Kira, I just replied to your answer in the chat. Thank you. Um, Everybody else, if you have any thoughts to those 2 questions, please put them in the chat before you go. I need to see those from you today to get full credit for today's class. All right, while you're working on that, I will make sure I have everybody marked here for attendance. All right, ladies and gents, it is 11:25, so we can wrap up there today. But please make sure you get me an answer to those 2 questions before we meet again next class. I will put them up on the summit announcement board as well. Okay. So if you have any questions, feel free to give me a shout or come see me in the Summit Lab. I'll be in there from 1 to 3 today. If not, then good job with this, and I will see you all again on Friday. All right. Y'all are good to go then for today. Thank you guys. Good job.